You think you can just come in here and act like you belong here? Victoria's voice cut through the school hallway like a blade. This isn't a charity school. People like you don't fit in at Westridge Academy. Sophia stood still, her dark eyes unwavering as she stared at the tall blonde pinning her against the lockers. The crowd of students behind Victoria fell silent, waiting for the new girl's reaction. I'm not looking for trouble, Sophia said quietly, her voice barely audible over the hum of the hallway. Victoria's perfectly painted lips curved into a cruel smile. Too bad, because trouble has found you. What happened next changed Westridge Academy forever. The most interesting part is coming. Stay with us to find out how it all ends. In the meantime, like and subscribe to the channel so you don't lose it. Morning light filtered softly through the tall windows of Westridge Academy, gilding the marble floors and giving a special shine to the wood paneling on the walls. The prestigious private school, known for its academic achievements and impeccable reputation, was welcoming a new student today. Sophia Ramirez walked slowly up the wide steps of the front entrance, clutching the straps of her battered backpack tightly. Every step was hard. It felt like her backpack weighed a ton and her legs had turned into lead. Sophia took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. This was her 5th school in 4 years, her 5th attempt to start over, her 5th hope that things would be different here. Sophia wasn't just new. She was the only Latina in a school where most of the students were white, wealthy kids. Her skin, darker than the others, her accent, subtle but noticeable, her clothes, simple and inexpensive, all set her apart from the crowd of impeccably dressed teenagers filling the spacious school courtyard. Just survive this last year, she whispered to herself, repeating the mantra she'd been using since her father told her they were moving again. Just survive this last year, and you're free. Sophia pushed through the heavy doors and found herself in the main hallway. Instantly, dozens of eyes turned in her direction. She felt their gazes probing her, studying her, assessing her, and she knew for sure, judging her. Sophia looked down, focusing on the school map in her hands. Room 327. She needed to find room 327 for her first period. Hey, are you lost? A voice came from behind, making Sophia jump. She turned around and saw a tall guy with kind eyes and a sincere smile. The school committee badge glittered on his chest. Yes, I'm looking for room 327, she replied, trying to sound confident, although inside she was clenching with anxiety. New girl, huh? I'm Daniel, helping you navigate your first few days. He held out his hand. 327 is the 3rd floor, West Wing. I can show you. Sophia smiled uncertainly and shook his hand. Thank you, Her words were cut off as a wave of whispers rolled down the hallway. The students parted like the sea before a ship, clearing the way for a group of teenagers walking down the center of the hallway. She walked ahead, a tall blonde with perfect posture and cool blue eyes. Her hair flowed like liquid gold over her shoulders. Every step was measured, as if she were walking on a catwalk, not a school corridor. The designer clothes perfectly emphasized her slender figure. This was Victoria Kingsley, and at first glance, Sophia understood who was in charge here. On Victoria's right hand was a red-haired girl with a sharp, watchful gaze. Bridget, her constant companion and gossip collector. On her left was Madison, a dark-haired beauty with a perpetually bored expression, who never spoke a word without her queen's permission. They were followed by 2 boys. One was tall, muscular, blonde, with features remarkably similar to Victoria's. This was Alexander Kingsley, her twin brother, the star of the school lacrosse team and everyone's favorite. The other was Jaden, a dark, handsome man with a permanent smirk on his lips, known for his ability to cause trouble just for the fun of it. Victoria stopped when she saw Sophia talking to Daniel. Her cold gaze slid over the new girl, taking in every detail, from her worn boots to her simple hairdo. It seems we have a new, interesting person, she said loudly enough for everyone around to hear. Bridget giggled and Madison allowed herself a disdainful smile. Alexander simply crossed his arms over his chest, watching with cold interest, while Jaden smirked, anticipating the entertainment. Sophia felt her face burn with shame and humiliation. Daniel tensed next to her. Victoria, she just arrived, he began, but the blonde interrupted him with a wave of her hand. I'm not talking to you, committee member, she snapped, not taking her eyes off Sophia. I'm talking to our new classmate. Sophia tightened her grip on the straps of her backpack, silently looking at the floor. She knew this game too well. Any reaction would only make the situation worse. Is she mute or something? Bridget asked loudly, causing a new wave of laughter in the hallway. She probably doesn't speak English, Madison added with false sympathy. Poor thing. Maybe she got lost on her way to... I speak perfect English, Sophia interrupted quietly but firmly, looking up. And I'm not lost. I'm a student at Westridge Academy, just like you. For a moment the hallway was silent. Victoria raised a perfectly plucked eyebrow, clearly not expecting a rebuff. Then her lips stretched into a cold smile. Oh, it talks, she drawled. And it even claims to belong to Westridge. How sweet. Alexander stepped forward, placing his hand on his sister's shoulder. Vic, the bell is ringing soon. We'll be late. Victoria kept her gaze on Sophia for a few more seconds before nodding casually. Of course. Let's not waste time. She walked past, deliberately bumping Sophia's shoulder hard enough to make her stagger. The others followed, Jaden winking at Sophia with a knowing grin. As the group left, Daniel turned to Sophia with a worried look. Don't pay any attention to them. Victoria thinks the school belongs to her. Isn't that so? Sophia smiled bitterly. Daniel smiled sadly. Unfortunately, in a sense you are right. Her father is a major donor to the school, a member of the board of trustees. The entire Kingsley family has a lot of influence. Sophia nodded. She had seen people like this before. Rich, privileged, who thought the world was theirs. There had always been someone like that at her previous schools, but somehow Victoria Kingsley seemed more dangerous than anyone she had ever met. Come on, Daniel touched her elbow gently. I'll walk you to class. The first lesson passed in a blur. Sophia sat in the farthest corner of the classroom, trying to be unnoticed. The teacher, an elderly man with kind eyes, introduced her to the class, and dozens of curious glances once again drank in. Among them, she noticed Victoria's cold blue eyes studying her with undisguised contempt. Ms. Ramirez has joined us to finish her senior year, the teacher announced. I hope you can help her settle into Westridge. Sophia nodded sheepishly and hurried to sit down. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Victoria leaning towards Bridget, whispering something that made the red-haired girl burst into barely contained laughter. Several students turned in their direction, then at Sophia, and chuckled as well. Thus began her first day of torture. The whispers followed her from class to class. At first quiet, barely audible, they gradually became louder, as if someone was slowly turning up the volume. Have you seen her clothes? Does she shop at a charity shop? They say her father is some Mexican bandit who ran away from the law. God, her accent is just terrible. Does she even understand what we're saying? Sophia held her head up, pretending not to hear, but every word was like a needle. She knew this was just the beginning. By lunchtime, the rumors would be outrageous. By the end of the day, people would be telling stories about her that she herself would never know. The hallway between classes was the worst. Sophia walked against the wall, trying to blend into the background. But every time she passed a group of students, the conversations would die down, then explode into laughter as she walked away. In the cafeteria, she chose the farthest table, hoping to go unnoticed. But at a school like Westridge, a new kid never goes unnoticed, especially a new kid who is so obviously different from everyone else. Sophia slowly chewed the sandwich she had brought from home, trying not to look around. Suddenly, she felt a presence. Looking up, she saw Victoria standing over her, with a tray on which a glass of dark red juice was balanced. Is this seat taken? Victoria asked with false politeness. Without waiting for an answer, she set the tray down on the table and sat down across from Sophia. Bridget and Madison flanked her, forming a human wall. Sophia froze, her sandwich frozen halfway to her mouth. I see you prefer home cooking, Victoria drawled, eyeing Sophia's simple sandwich. How nice. They serve real food here, you know. She nodded toward her own tray of gourmet salad and freshly squeezed juice. Sophia didn't answer, slowly lowering her sandwich. What's wrong? Have you swallowed your tongue? Bridget chuckled. Or do they not teach manners in your native language? Leave her alone, Bridge, Victoria sighed dramatically. She just doesn't know how to behave in polite company. It's not her fault. Where are you from, Sophia? What area? Every word was laced with venom. Sophia felt the anger rising inside her, but she quickly suppressed it. She couldn't afford to react. Not now. Not here. I'm from Los Angeles, she replied briefly. Oh, Los Angeles, Victoria drawled, as if the name physically disgusted her. And what brings you to our little elite corner? Did your father find work here? She said the last word as if it were something shameful. Sophia clenched her fists under the table. Something like that, she answered through clenched teeth. Victoria leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. You know, Sophia, there's a certain way of doing things in Westridge. A certain hierarchy, and newbies, especially ones like you, start at the bottom. Sophia remained silent, not looking away. Victoria seemed irritated by this silent resistance. Can you hear me? Or are you pretending not to understand English? I hear you, Sophia answered calmly, and I understand perfectly. Something in her tone, some hidden power, made Victoria frown for a moment, but it quickly passed, replaced by a cold smile. Okay, then you realize you need to know your place. She stood up, picking up her glass of juice. And I think your place is somewhere away from my desk. With that, she knocked over the glass, spilling dark red juice all over Sophia's tray. The sticky liquid spread across the table, soaking her sandwich and dripping onto Sophia's lap. Oh, how awkward, Victoria gasped mockingly. My hand must have slipped. The cafeteria erupted in laughter. Dozens of eyes looked at Sophia, waiting for her reaction. She felt the blood rush to her face, her heart pounding in her chest, her hands starting to shake. A wave of rage that she had been holding back for so long was rising inside her. But Sophia didn't move. Her face remained impassive, her gaze hard. She slowly took a napkin, dabbed her knees, then stood up, gathered her things, and without saying a word, headed for the exit. Victoria watched her go, her smug smile slowly fading. She had expected tears, screams, anything but this cool, controlled calm. Something about the new girl's demeanor made her feel strangely uneasy. Sophia walked out of the cafeteria, only then allowing herself to take a deep breath. Her hands were shaking, but she clenched them into fists. She couldn't let herself break. Not here, not now. Not because of the likes of Victoria Kingsley. She headed to the nearest bathroom to wash the juice off her clothes. Locking herself in the stall, Sophia leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. The memories came flooding back like a tidal wave. 2 years ago, at her previous school, there had been a similar situation. A group of girls had decided that Sophia was the perfect target for bullying. Months of humiliation, months of pent-up anger. And then the thing she feared most happened. She snapped. Caroline, the leader of that group, pushed her in front of the entire school, and Sophia responded instinctively, using the techniques her father had taught her since she was a child. One punch, and Caroline ended up in the hospital with a broken nose and a concussion. After this incident, Sophia had to leave school. Her father, Rafael Ramirez, a former martial arts champion who now owns a small dojo, was forced to move with his daughter to a new city. Never use your power to hurt others, he had told her since she was a child. Power is a responsibility, not a weapon. Sophia remembered those words. She also remembered how disappointed her father had been after the incident with Caroline. Not because she had defended herself, but because she had failed to control her anger. From then on, Sophia made a promise to herself, never to lose control again. Never to let her emotions take over her mind. Never to give free rein to the hidden power that lived inside her. But now, standing in the cramped stall of the school bathroom, her clothes stained with juice and her heart full of anger, Sophia felt her resolve cracking at the seams. The bell interrupted her thoughts. Sophia took a deep breath, washed her face, and walked out of the bathroom. She still had half the school day to get through. The remaining lessons dragged on endlessly. Sophia sat, mechanically writing down the teacher's words, but her thoughts were far away. She felt glances on her. She heard whispers. But the worst thing was Victoria, who seemed to be genuinely enjoying the situation. Things got even worse in gym class. While changing in the locker room, Sophia heard the girls talking about her in high voices. Oh my God, have you seen her bra? Is that from the supermarket? I wonder if she has any idea about fashion. God, she's so clumsy. She probably can't even run properly. Sophia tied her shoelaces silently, ignoring the taunts. As she walked out onto the field, she saw Alexander and Jaden standing with a group of boys. They all stared at her as she walked past. Hey, new girl, Jaden called out. I heard you became friends with my girlfriend's juice. The others laughed. Sophia did not slow down. The physical education teacher, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a stern face, announced that they would play volleyball today. He divided the class into teams. Of course, Sophia ended up on the opposite team from Victoria and her friends. The game began. Sophia tried to stay out of the way, not to attract attention. But Alexander, the captain of the opposing team, seemed determined to make her his target. He aimed the ball straight at her, with such force that it looked more like an attack than a game. Hey, Ramirez, catch! He shouted, sending another powerful blow in her direction. The ball was flying straight at her face. Instinctively, without thinking, Sophia moved to the side and hit the ball with a precise, powerful shot. The ball flew through the net like a bullet and hit the floor a few centimeters from Alexander's feet. For a moment, there was silence on the field. Alexander looked at Sophia with surprise and something akin to respect. Then he frowned. "Beginner's luck," he muttered, picking up the ball. The game continued, but now Jaden had joined in the targeted attack on Sophia. Balls were flying towards her one after another, with increasing force and aggression. Sophia hit them all, her movements becoming more precise and confident as she allowed her body to remember the years of training. Her team began to win, thanks to her unexpected skill. This only angered Alexander and Jaden. Jaden's next punch was so strong that it could have seriously injured Sophia if it had hit, but she dodged it and the ball hit the wall behind her. "Hey, take it easy," the teacher shouted. Jaden shrugged innocently. "Sorry, coach, I misjudged the strength." When the bell rang, Sophia quickly headed to the locker room, wanting to change before the others and leave. But in the hallway, Alexander intercepted her. His blue eyes, as cold as his sister's, studied her with new interest. "Where did you learn to play like that, Ramirez?" he asked. "You don't look like a beginner." Sophia shrugged. "Just luck." She tried to go around him, but Alexander stepped aside, blocking her path. "I don't believe in luck. It was a trained blow." Sophia looked up, meeting his gaze. "My father owns a martial arts school. I grew up training every day. Are you happy now?" Alexander raised an eyebrow, surprised by her direct answer. Then he chuckled. "Martial arts, huh? Interesting." He stepped aside to allow her to pass, but his gaze followed her, thoughtful and calculating. Sophia felt like she had made a mistake by revealing this information. She had no intention of telling anyone about her training, about her skills. This was a part of her life that she wanted to leave behind. The rest of the day passed relatively calmly, although Sophia noticed that people were looking at her with a different interest now. The rumors seemed to have changed direction. Now they were whispering not about her cheap clothes or her accent, but about how she supposedly had a black belt and could kill with her bare hands. When the last bell rang, Sophia headed for the exit with relief. She wanted only one thing: to return home, to a safe space where she did not have to pretend and restrain herself. But Victoria was waiting for her at the main entrance with her usual retinue. They stood in a semicircle, obviously waiting for her. "Here comes our kung fu master," Victoria drawled. "Brother told me about your talents." Sophia stopped, feeling her heart begin to beat faster. "I need to go." "Oh, so fast," Victoria said, feigning surprise. "And we were just starting to get to know each other better." She stepped forward, her perfect face twisted in a sneer. "You know, Sophia, I'm not impressed by your little stunts in gym class. At Westridge, it's not about hitting a ball. It's about who you are and who your family is." Sophia was silent, trying to breathe evenly. "And what is your family? Illegal immigrants who play ninjas?" Victoria looked at her, waiting for a reaction. "Or was your karate daddy too busy breaking boards to teach you how to dress properly?" Sophia's patience was wearing thin. She took a step forward, looking Victoria straight in the eye. "Don't talk about my father." Victoria smiled, pleased that she had finally gotten a reaction. "Oh, do we have a sensitive spot here? Daddy must be proud of his little warrior? Or is he too busy sweeping the floors of his little dojo?" Sophia's hands clenched into fists. She felt the anger rising inside her, threatening to burst forth. But she couldn't let that happen. Not again. "Let me through," she said quietly. "Please." Victoria laughed. "Or what? You're going to use your ninja moves on me? Go ahead and try it. My father owns half the board of directors at this school. One word from me, and you'll be out of here faster than you can say Aikido." Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, focusing on her breathing as her father had taught her. When she opened them, her gaze was calm and determined. "I don't want any trouble," she said firmly, "and I don't want to fight. Just let me through." Something in her tone and her gaze made Victoria back away slightly. For a moment, she looked almost scared, but it quickly passed, and the cold smile returned to her face. "Of course, please," she stepped back dramatically. "Who am I to stand in the way of a karate champion?" Sophia walked past, trying to keep her distance from Victoria and her friends. But as she passed, Jaden suddenly stuck out his foot, trying to trip her. Sophia, thanks to years of training, easily dodged it without breaking stride. Jaden looked annoyed. Victoria looked thoughtful. "You're going to regret coming to Westridge, Ramirez," she called after Sophia. "Tomorrow is a new day." Sophia didn't look back. She just kept walking, stepping out of the school gates, and only then did she allow herself to exhale. Her first day at Westridge Academy was over, but she knew the real tests were just beginning. The old bus pulled up to the stop and Sophia climbed in, sinking into the empty seat with relief. Through the window, she could see Victoria and her friends getting into luxury cars with personal drivers. Two different worlds that were never meant to intersect. The walk home took nearly an hour. Their small house was in a working-class neighborhood, far from the upscale neighborhoods where most of Westridge's students lived. When the bus stopped, Sophia hopped out onto the sidewalk and walked quickly down the familiar street. Their home, a small but neat two-story cottage, was the only bright spot in her life. Here she could be herself, without pretending or holding back. Sophia opened the door and walked into the living room. Her father, Raphael, was sitting in an old chair, looking through papers. Hearing the door, he looked up and smiled. Rafael Ramirez was a tall, powerfully built man with graying temples and kindly brown eyes. Despite his 45 years, he retained a physical fitness that would have done credit to a young athlete. The military bearing of his service days was combined with the grace of a martial artist. "How was your first day, mija?" he asked, putting the papers aside. Sophia dropped her backpack on the floor and collapsed onto the couch. "The same as always," she sighed. "New school, same problems." Raphael looked at his daughter carefully. He knew her too well to believe this casual statement. "What happened?" Sophia closed her eyes. She didn't want to worry her father. He had enough problems with the new dojo, which was barely making ends meet. "Nothing special," she lied. "Just the usual high school drama. Nothing I can't handle." Raphael frowned, noticing a dark stain on her pants. "What's that?" Sophia followed his gaze inside. "Just juice. Someone accidentally spilled it on me in the cafeteria." "Accidentally?" Raphael raised an eyebrow. "Sophia, can you tell me the truth? Are you being bullied again?" Sophia bit her lip. She didn't want to tell her father about Victoria and her friends. She didn't want him to worry. She didn't want him to be disappointed in her if she couldn't control her anger. "Dad, it's just school," she tried to smile. "There's always a group of popular kids who think they own the world. And there's always the new kids they target. Nothing new." Raphael stood up and walked over to his daughter, sitting down next to her on the couch. "Sophia, I taught you to stand up for yourself, but I also taught you to control your power. You shouldn't let anyone hurt you, but you shouldn't hurt them back either." Sophia nodded. "I know, Dad. I remember your lessons." Raphael took her hands in his. "Mija, strength is not in hitting the hardest. Strength is in knowing when to hit and when to hold back. Remember, a true warrior is not the one who wins all the battles, but the one who knows which battles are worth fighting." Sophia nodded again, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. She tried so hard to be strong, to control herself, but it was becoming harder and harder every day. "I'll be okay, Dad," she whispered. "I can handle this. It's just another year. The last year." Raphael hugged his daughter, holding her tightly. "I know you can do this, mija. You're stronger than you think. And remember, no matter what happens, I'm always on your side." Sophia closed her eyes, letting the warmth of her father's embrace comfort her. She felt safe here in their small home. But tomorrow she would be back in Westridge, back with Victoria and her friends. And Sophia knew her ordeal was only just beginning. That night, Sophia couldn't sleep for a long time. She lay in her small room, staring at the ceiling, thoughts circling in her head like a flock of disturbed birds. The image of Victoria Kingsley, her cold blue eyes and cruel smile, haunted her, giving her no peace. "You'll regret coming to Westridge, Ramirez." The words rang in her ears like an ominous prediction. Sophia knew that Victoria would not stop. Today was just a warm-up, a first test of strength. Tomorrow would be worse. The day after tomorrow, even worse. And so on until Sophia broke down or ran away. She rolled over onto her side, clutching her pillow. Running away would be the easiest thing, asking her father to transfer her to another school, a less prestigious one, where there would be no one like Victoria. But that would mean giving up her chance at a good education, at getting into a decent college. That would mean running away again. "No," Sophia whispered into the darkness. "I won't run anymore." She sat up in bed, hugging her knees. She couldn't let Victoria win. She couldn't let that spoiled rich girl ruin her senior year, her dreams for the future. But she also couldn't let herself lose her temper like she had with Carolyn. She couldn't let her anger get the better of her. She couldn't disappoint her father again. Sophia closed her eyes, focusing on her breathing, just like her father had taught her. In, out, slowly, deeply, steadily. She felt her heartbeat slowing, the tension leaving her body. "I can handle this," she whispered. "I'm stronger than she thinks. I'm stronger than I think." Finally calming down, Sophia lay down and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would be a new day, and she would be ready. Morning came too quickly. Sophia woke up to the sound of her alarm clock, feeling as if she had just closed her eyes. But there was no time to be tired. She dressed quickly, choosing the most inconspicuous clothes, dark jeans and a gray sweatshirt. The less she stood out, the better. Raphael was already in the kitchen preparing breakfast. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and fried eggs filled the small room. "Good morning, mija," he smiled as Sophia entered the kitchen. "Ready for day 2? Sophia nodded, trying to look more confident than she felt. "Of course, Dad. Everything will be fine." Raphael looked at his daughter carefully. "Sophia, I know that you didn't tell me everything yesterday, but remember, if you need my help, I'm always here." Sophia walked up to her father and hugged him. "I know, Dad, thank you." After breakfast, Sophia said goodbye to her father and left the house. The bus stop was a few blocks from their home. As she walked, Sophia mentally prepared herself for the day ahead. She knew Victoria would not leave her alone. She knew that today's attacks would be stronger than yesterday's. But she would be ready. The bus pulled up and Sophia climbed in, choosing a window seat. As it approached Westridge, the bus filled up with students. No one sat next to her. No one even looked in her direction. Sophia was used to this attitude. When the bus pulled up at the gates of Westridge Academy, Sophia took a deep breath before stepping out. The schoolyard was filled with students standing in groups, chatting, laughing. A normal morning at a privileged school. Sophia walked with her head up, looking straight ahead. She felt eyes on her, heard whispers, but she didn't pay attention. She had almost reached the main entrance when she heard a familiar voice. "Good morning, Ramirez. Did you sleep well?" Victoria stood at the entrance, surrounded by her usual entourage. She looked fresh and flawless, like a model from a magazine cover. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup was flawless. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. Sophia paused, ready for a confrontation, but Victoria didn't seem in the mood for an open attack. Instead, she simply nodded, as if they were old acquaintances exchanging pleasantries. "I hope today is better than yesterday," Victoria said with false concern. "Oh, and try not to spill any juice on yourself today, okay?" Bridget and Madison giggled. Alexander just watched, his face unreadable. Jaden smirked, clearly enjoying the situation. Sophia didn't answer. She simply walked past them, heading for her locker. However, Victoria's strange behavior made her wary. It was too calm, too polite, like the calm before the storm. The first lesson passed without incident. Sophia sat in her usual place in the corner, trying not to attract attention. Victoria, sitting a few rows away, seemed to have forgotten about her existence, chatting enthusiastically with Bridget. During the break, Sophia quickly gathered her things and left the classroom, heading to her next lesson. The hallway was crowded, students were rushing about their business. Sophia walked, keeping close to the wall, watching those around her out of the corner of her eye. Suddenly, she saw Jaden standing at the drinking fountain. He was looking straight at her, a strange smile playing on his lips. Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. She quickened her pace, wanting to get past him as quickly as possible. But as she drew level with Jaden, he suddenly stepped to the side, deliberately slamming his shoulder into her. The impact was strong enough to cause Sophia to stagger and drop her books. "Oh, sorry," Jaden faked a gasp. "Didn't see you." Sophia silently bent down to gather her things. Jaden didn't move, looking down at her. "You know, Ramirez," he said quietly, so only she could hear, "Victoria doesn't like being contradicted, and you really upset her yesterday with your calmness." Sophia continued to collect her textbooks without looking at him. "Victoria thinks you're a little too stuck up for a new girl, especially for someone like you," Jaden continued. "So she decided to teach you some manners. For real." Sophia finally looked up, meeting his gaze. "Tell Victoria I'm not looking for trouble. I just want to finish school in peace." Jaden laughed. "Oh, but trouble has already found you, Ramirez. And after school today, you'll find out just how bad it is." With these words, he walked away, leaving Sophia with an unpleasant feeling of anxiety. The rest of the lessons passed in tense anticipation. Sophia could not concentrate on the teacher's words. Her thoughts constantly returned to Jaden's threat. What was Victoria preparing? What humiliation had she come up with this time? In the cafeteria, Sophia chose the farthest table. Just like yesterday, she ate her homemade sandwich, trying not to look towards the central table. where Victoria and her friends were laughing loudly, surrounded by admiring glances from other students. But today, no one approached her. No one poured juice on her tray. No one even looked in her direction. This only increased her anxiety. Something was going on, something serious, and this something was supposed to happen after school. The last period was coming to an end. Sophia sat, tensely looking at the clock. Every second that approached the end of the school day made her heart beat faster. She knew that she had to be ready for anything. Finally, the bell rang. The students quickly gathered their things and rushed to the exit. Sophia hesitated, wondering if she should even leave the classroom. Maybe it would be better to wait here, wait until everyone left, but she knew it was pointless. Victoria would find a way to get to her anyway. It was better to face the threat than to hide and be afraid. Sophia gathered her things and walked out of the classroom. The hallways were almost empty. Most of the students had already left the building. Sophia walked to her locker, feeling the tension build with every step. When she reached the locker, she saw a note attached to it. A simple white piece of paper with a few words written in neat handwriting. Behind the gym, now, if you don't come, everyone will know you're a coward. V. Sophia looked at the note, feeling her heart pounding in her chest. It was an open provocation, a direct challenge. Victoria wanted to lure her to a secluded place, away from the eyes of teachers and guards. "Don't go," a reasonable voice in her head whispered. "It's a trap." But Sophia knew she had no choice. If she didn't go, Victoria would make her life miserable. Spread rumors, laugh at her, humiliate her in front of the entire school. It wouldn't end until Sophia met her face to face. Sophia took a deep breath, folded the note and put it in her pocket. Then she closed her locker and headed toward the gym, bracing herself for the worst. The gym was in a separate building, connected to the main building by a covered walkway. Behind it was a small patch of land, surrounded by trees, hidden from prying eyes. The perfect place for a confrontation. Sophia walked out the back door of the gym and saw them right away. Victoria was standing in the center of a small clearing, surrounded by her group. Bridget and Madison were on either side of her. Alexander and Jaden were a little behind. But they weren't alone. About 10 other students were standing in a semicircle, clearly waiting for the show. Victoria smiled when she saw Sophia. "Here comes our martial arts master. I was beginning to think you weren't coming." Sophia stopped at the edge of the clearing, assessing the situation. She was outnumbered, surrounded on all sides. There was nowhere to retreat. "What do you want, Victoria?" she asked bluntly. Victoria laughed. "Oh, I just want to make a few things clear. You see, there is a certain order to Westridge, and newcomers, especially ones like you, need to know their place." She took a step forward. "But you don't seem to understand that. You act like you don't care, like you're above it all." Sophia was silent, watching Victoria. "And that really irritates me," Victoria continued, her voice growing colder. "So today I decided to teach you a lesson. A real lesson, one you'll remember for a long time." She nodded and Alexander stepped forward, removing his sports jacket. His muscular arms tensed as he clenched his fists. "You like martial arts, right, Ramirez?" he chuckled. "Let's see how good you really are." Sophia took a step back, shocked. "Are you serious? You're going to fight me? Boy versus girl?" "Oh, don't worry," Victoria interjected. "Alex knows how to handle girls. Just ask anyone at school." The crowd laughed. Sophia felt anger rising inside her. "I won't fight," she said firmly. "Then stand and take the blows." Alexander shrugged, taking another step forward. Sophia knew she had no choice. She had to defend herself. But she also knew she had to control herself, not let her anger cloud her judgment. "Last chance, Ramirez," Alexander smirked. "Show us your ninja skills or admit that you're just a pathetic coward." Sophia took a deep breath, making her decision. She dropped her backpack and stepped forward, adopting the stance her father had taught her. Feet slightly apart, weight evenly distributed, arms relaxed but ready for action. Alexander, seeing her fighting stance, hesitated for a moment. Then he grinned and moved forward, swinging his arm to strike. Sophia didn't even think. Her body acted on its own, reacting to years of training. She smoothly moved to the side, letting Alexander's blow pass, and in the same instant she grabbed his wrist, using his own strength and momentum to throw him off balance. It all happened so fast that no one had time to blink. A second later, Alexander was lying on the ground, looking up at the sky with a shocked expression on his face. Sophia stepped back, returning to her original stance. The crowd gasped. Victoria paled, her confidence instantly gone. Jaden looked like he couldn't believe his eyes. "It's impossible," someone whispered. Alexander slowly rose to his feet, his face contorted with rage and humiliation. It was an accident. I didn't expect." "Then maybe you shouldn't attack people if you're not prepared for their response?" Sophia asked quietly. It was too much for Alexander. He rushed at her with a growl, no longer thinking about technique, just trying to grab her, to throw her to the ground. Sophia moved again, as if in a dance. She dodged his attack, smoothly stepping around him and using his own strength against him. Alexander was on the ground again, this time even harder. "Enough!" Victoria screamed, her voice shaking with rage. "Jaden, do something!" Without thinking, Jaden charged. He was faster and more cunning than Alexander, trying to trick Sophia with false moves. But years of training with her father had prepared her for such tricks. She read his movements like an open book. As Jaden lunged, Sophia caught his arm, spun his body around, and applied a simple hold that instantly immobilized him. Jaden cried out in pain, finding himself in a position where even the slightest movement caused discomfort. "Let me go," he hissed. Sophia held the grip for another second, then released it, stepping back. Jaden fell to his knees, clutching his arm. Now the clearing was completely silent. No one could believe what had just happened. Sophia Ramirez, the quiet new girl, had just defeated two of the strongest boys in school with no apparent effort. Victoria stood frozen in shock. Her perfect plan had collapsed before her eyes. Her brother and her boyfriend had been humiliated in front of everyone. Her power, her authority, everything had been shaken in an instant. You're going to regret this," she choked out, her voice shaking with rage and fear. "My father's going to find out. You're going to flunk out of school. "I was just defending myself," Sophia replied calmly, "from two guys who attacked me. I think the security cameras at the gym captured enough of it to back up my words." Victoria turned even paler. She didn't think about the cameras. Sophia picked up her backpack. "I don't want any trouble, Victoria. I just want to finish school in peace. But I won't let you or anyone else bully me. Ever again." She turned to leave, but suddenly heard quick footsteps behind her. Victoria, beside herself with rage, rushed at her from behind. Sophia knew what was happening without even turning around. Her body responded automatically. She shifted slightly to the side, caught Victoria's hand, and gently but firmly pulled her off balance, forcing her to stop in an awkward position, almost falling, but supported by Sophia's grip. Victoria gasped in shock and fear. Sophia leaned towards her ear. "You were never strong," she whispered. "Your strength was in the fear of others. But I am not afraid of you." She let go of Victoria, allowing her to regain her balance. Victoria recoiled, looking at Sophia with a mixture of fear and hatred. Sophia turned and walked away, leaving the group in complete silence. She heard the whispers behind her, saw the shocked looks, but she didn't stop. Her heart was pounding, adrenaline was pulsing through her veins, but she felt strangely calm. For the first time in a long time, she didn't run away. She didn't give up. And most importantly, she didn't lose control. Father was right. True strength does not come from hurting others. True strength comes from knowing when and how to use your skills to protect yourself without going overboard. Sophia stepped out of the school gates, took a deep breath of fresh air, and allowed herself to smile. It was only her second day at Westridge Academy, but she already knew that the remaining months would be completely different. The morning after the showdown behind the school gym hung over Westridge Academy like a thunderstorm. The hallways buzzed with whispers and excited recountings of the previous day's events. The story of how the quiet new girl had taken on 3 men at once, athlete star Alexander, his friend Jaden, and the school queen herself, Victoria, spread like wildfire. By the time first period began, there wasn't a single student who hadn't heard about the incident, each time embellished with new details. Sophia walked down the hallway, feeling the eyes following her, but now everything was different. Instead of contempt and ridicule, she saw respect, admiration, even fear. Students parted for her, whispering in each other's ears. One boy from the younger class even pointed at her, his eyes wide as if he saw a celebrity. "They say she's a karate champion. I heard her father is a martial artist who trained special forces. She could have killed them all with her bare hands, but she spared them." Sophia tried to ignore the conversations. She focused on the day ahead, preparing for the inevitable confrontation with Victoria and her group. But strangely, none of them showed up. Not Victoria with her perfect posture and cold smile. Not the loyal Bridget and Madison. Not Alexander and Jaden. No one was in sight. When Sophia reached her locker, she found a new note on it. This time not a threat, but just a few words written in a trembling hand. This is not the end. We will talk later. V. Sophia crumpled the note and threw it away. She wasn't afraid of Victoria, not after yesterday, but something about that brief threat made her wary. Victoria Kingsley wasn't one to easily admit defeat, and people like her, when cornered, only became more dangerous. The first period began without incident. Sophia took her usual place in the corner, but this time several students smiled shyly at her. One girl even waved. Sophia responded with a slight nod, unsure how to react to this sudden attention. She didn't want to be popular, she just wanted to be left alone. Halfway through the lesson, the classroom door opened and Victoria walked in. She looked as perfect as ever, but there was something new in her eyes, a cold, calculated fury. She slid quickly into her seat, avoiding looking at Sophia. "Miss Kingsley, we have already started the lesson," the teacher noted. "Please explain your lateness." "A family emergency, Mr. Parker," Victoria replied evenly. "My father asked me to convey his apologies." "Well, if Mr. Kingsley is apologizing," the teacher muttered, returning to the board. Sophia caught a fleeting smile on Victoria's face, a smile that did not bode well. Something was happening, something Sophia did not yet understand. The rest of the classes before lunch passed in a strange, tense silence. Victoria and her friends kept to themselves, whispering among themselves and casting cold glances in Sophia's direction. Alexander, usually the center of attention in any room, sat silently, his face grim, his eyes distant. Jaden seemed nervous, constantly glancing around as if waiting for something. In the cafeteria, Sophia again chose the farthest table. To her surprise, after a few minutes, Daniel, the same guy from the school committee who helped her on the first day, sat down next to her. "May I?" he asked, even though he had already placed his tray on the table. Sophia nodded, not knowing what to expect. "Are you okay?" Daniel asked, lowering his voice. "The whole school is talking about what happened yesterday." Sophia shrugged, feeling awkward. "I was just defending myself." "I know," Daniel nodded. "Everyone knows it. You did what no one else would have dared to do. You stood up to Victoria and her brother." He paused. "But be careful. The Kingsley family is not one to forget grievances." "I'm not afraid of them," Sophia answered quietly. "Maybe you should." Daniel leaned closer. "Their father, Richard Kingsley, is a huge influence. He's not just a trustee of the school, he's its chairman. And that's not all. He owns half the businesses in town, including the land this school sits on." Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean?" "Just be prepared." Daniel glanced around, making sure no one was listening. "Victoria wasn't out this morning by accident. She was in the principal's office with her father. And from what I heard, it sounds like they're up to something." Sophia wanted to ask him more details, but at that moment the cafeteria doors opened and Victoria entered, accompanied by Bridget and Madison. They headed straight for Sophia's table. "Look who we have here," Victoria said loudly enough for everyone in the cafeteria to hear. "Our celebrity." Sophia looked up, meeting Victoria's gaze. "What do you want, Victoria?" "Oh, I just wanted to congratulate you," Victoria smiled, but her eyes remained cold. "You made an impression yesterday. You really did." Sophia remained silent, sensing a catch. "But you know what's most interesting?" Victoria continued, her voice turning icy. "My father was also very interested in learning about your talents. So interested that he even made inquiries about you and your family." Sophia tensed. Daniel put his hand on her shoulder, trying to calm her down. "And imagine my surprise." Victoria was now grinning widely, like a predator who has cornered its prey. "When he discovered some details about your past, about your father, and why you move so often." Sophia's heart skipped a beat. She felt the blood drain from her face. "You didn't tell anyone, did you?" Victoria continued. "About that incident at your last school, about the girl you sent to the hospital, about how your father almost got his teaching license revoked for teaching his daughter, what was it called? Lethal techniques?" The cafeteria fell into a tense silence. All eyes were on Sophia. "It was self-defense," Sophia said quietly, feeling a wave of anger and fear rise inside her. "And you have no right to talk about my father." "Oh, but I'm just getting started." Victoria leaned forward, resting her hands on the table. "You know what else is interesting? Your father, Rafael Ramirez, a former martial arts champion, a brilliant career, gold medals, contracts with the biggest sports brands, and then suddenly nothing, completely disappeared from the sport. Do you know why, Sophia? Or should I tell everyone? Sophia stood up, her hands shaking. Stop this right now. Your father was kicked out of the league for doping, Victoria blurted, her voice ringing with triumph. He's a fraud, Sophia, a cheater, a man who betrayed everything he was supposed to represent. And now he hides out in a small dojo on the outskirts of town, pretending to be a great master when he's really just a loser who was never really strong. Sophia didn't remember how she had closed the distance between herself and Victoria. She didn't realize what she was doing until she was face to face with the girl, her hands clenching into fists reflexively. Take that back, she whispered, her voice shaking with barely contained rage. Now! Victoria didn't back down. Instead, she smiled even wider. Or what? Are you going to send me to the hospital too? Prove that you're a fraud like your father? Sophia's hand twitched involuntarily. It took all her willpower to keep from hitting Victoria right there in the cafeteria in front of the entire school. Sophia, don't. Daniel was there, his hand on her shoulder. She's not worth it. Oh, but I'm standing, Victoria laughed. And you know what else? My father thinks so too. So much so that right now he's talking to the principal about your inappropriate behavior, about how you attacked several students yesterday, how you're a threat to the safety of the entire school. Sophia felt the room begin to spin around her. What do you mean? By the end of the day, Sophia Ramirez, you will be expelled from Westridge Academy, Victoria announced triumphantly. And that will be your 6th school in 4 years, correct? I wonder what school will be willing to accept you after that. Especially when everyone knows about your violent tendencies. Sophia took a step back, her mind racing in panic. She couldn't be expelled. Not now, not in her senior year. It would ruin her chances of getting into college, of getting the scholarship she was counting on. You can't do this, she squeezed out. I already did, Victoria turned, preparing to leave. Enjoy your last hours in Westridge, Ramirez. Sophia stood there transfixed as Victoria and her friends walked away in triumph. The entire cafeteria looked at her, some with pity, some with a mixture of fear and curiosity, some with poorly concealed satisfaction. Let's get out of here, Daniel said quietly, gently pushing her toward the exit. We need to figure something out. Sophia let him lead her out of the cafeteria, her mind still trying to process what had happened. How could Victoria have known about her past? About Caroline, the incident she and her father had kept so carefully hidden? And worse, how did she know about the doping scandal? It was a dark page in their family history that no one spoke about. Even Sophia herself learned about it by accident, overhearing her father's conversation with his old friends several years ago. Raphael never discussed it with her, and she never asked, respecting his silence. Look, Daniel led her into an empty classroom and closed the door. This isn't over. We can go to the principal, explain what happened yesterday. You have witnesses. People saw that you were only defending yourself. Sophia shook her head. It doesn't matter. You said it yourself. Victoria's father controls everything. If he decides that I should be expelled, I will be expelled. Then we need proof, Daniel insisted. You mentioned the cameras outside the gym. If the footage shows they attacked first, do you think those records still exist? Sophia chuckled bitterly. I bet Richard Kingsley has already taken care of that. Daniel thought about it. There has to be a way. We can't just give up. Sophia leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. She felt trapped, helpless. All she wanted was to finish school in peace. And now she was being uprooted again, forced to run again. And the worst thing was that Victoria used her father, his past, to hit her where it hurt most. Rafael Ramirez was everything to Sophia. A father, a teacher, the only constant in a life full of change and uncertainty. He sacrificed everything for her, worked 2 jobs to provide her with a decent life, never complained, never reproached. And the way Victoria spoke of him, with such contempt, with such arrogance. Sophia felt the anger rising inside her again, hot and all-consuming. I need to talk to my father, she said, opening her eyes. He needs to know what's going on. Sure, Daniel nodded. Want me to come with you? Sophia shook her head. No, it's family. But thank you, Daniel, for everything. He smiled weakly. Hey, I'm always on the side of justice. And you know, what you did yesterday? That was cool. Really cool. Sophia tried to smile back, but it came out unconvincing. We'll see if you think so when I pack up at the end of the day. The bell rang, signaling the start of the next class. Sophia decided that she couldn't wait until the end of class. She had to talk to her father immediately. I'm going home, she told Daniel. Tell the teachers. I don't know, something. It doesn't matter anymore. Daniel nodded. Be careful, Sophia, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Sophia quickly gathered her things from her locker and slipped out of the school through a side exit, avoiding the guards. Her heart was pounding, her thoughts were jumbled. How would she explain to her father what had happened? How would she tell him that their past had caught up with them again, that they would have to run again? The bus stop was empty at this time of day. Sophia sat down on a bench, staring absently at the road. She felt so tired, so broken. Why, no matter where they went, their past always found them? Why couldn't they just live a normal life like everyone else? The bus appeared on the horizon, and Sophia stood up, ready to board. But suddenly a black SUV with tinted windows pulled up next to the bus stop. The back door opened, and a tall, elegantly dressed man in his 50s stepped out. His blonde hair was neatly combed back, his features sharp but handsome. Sophia instantly recognized those cool blue eyes, that confident posture. Standing before her was Richard Kingsley, Victoria and Alexander's father. Miss Ramirez, he said, his voice deep and commanding. May I speak to you for a moment? Sophia froze, unsure of what to do. Part of her wanted to run, but she knew it was pointless. She nodded slowly. Please, Richard gestured toward the open car door. I'd like to speak to you privately. I'm not going anywhere with you, Sophia said firmly. If you want to talk, we can do it here. Richard smiled slightly. Smart girl. Okay, here then. He motioned to the driver who drove off, leaving them alone at the bus stop. I've heard a lot about you, Miss Ramirez, especially after yesterday's incident with my children. Sophia remained silent, watching him. I must admit, I was impressed by your skills, Richard continued. It's not every day that a young woman can defeat 3 opponents, including an athlete of Alexander's caliber. I didn't want to fight, Sophia replied. They attacked me. I was only defending myself. Of course, Richard nodded, as if agreeing with a small child. Still, such skills could be dangerous in an uncontrolled environment, especially given your past. Sophia tensed. What do you want? Straight to the point. I like this. Richard took a step closer. I want to offer you an alternative to expulsion. Sophia was silent, waiting for him to continue. You see, Ms. Ramirez, I have some influence not only in Westridge, but in the martial arts world as well, Richard said quietly, matter-of-factly. I sponsor several tournaments, own several training centers, and I must say, your talent intrigues me. Sophia frowned, not understanding what he was getting at. I'm going to make you a deal. Richard pulled an envelope from his inside jacket pocket. There's a major junior mixed martial arts tournament coming up next month. One of my fighters has unfortunately pulled out due to injury. I want you to take his place. Sophia looked at him with bewilderment. You want me to participate in the tournament? Exactly, Richard nodded. Under my auspices, of course. If you agree, not only will I forget about the incident with my children, but I will also ensure you a place at Westridge for the rest of the year. What's more, if you perform well, I can guarantee you an athletic scholarship to college. Sophia couldn't believe her ears. Why? Why are you offering me this? Richard smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Let's just say I have a knack for recognizing talent, and I'd rather invest in it than destroy it, as long as that talent works for me, not against me, of course. Sophia sensed a catch. What if I refuse? Then I'm afraid the process of your exclusion will continue, Richard shrugged. And I must say, with your track record and your father's peculiarities, finding a new school will be quite problematic, not to mention college. Sophia clenched her fists. She knew this was blackmail, pure manipulation. But she also knew she had no choice. Not now, not when her future and her father's reputation were at stake. I need to think, she finally said, and talk to my father. Of course, Richard handed her an envelope. It contains all the tournament details and my personal phone number. You have until tomorrow. After that, I won't be able to stop the elimination process. Sophia took the envelope, feeling its weight in her hand. Richard nodded to her, then pulled out his phone and pressed a button. A few seconds later, the SUV returned. See you tomorrow, Ms. Ramirez, Richard said, opening the car door. I trust in your discretion. He got into the car and the SUV quickly disappeared from view. Sophia was left alone at the bus stop, clutching the envelope and feeling like the world was collapsing around her. The bus pulled up, but Sophia barely noticed it. She mechanically walked up the steps, showed her bus pass, and sat down on the first seat she found. Her thoughts were in chaos. A martial arts tournament, under the auspices of Richard Kingsley. It sounded like a trap, a way to control her, to use her. But what else could she do? Let them expel her from school? Ruin any chance of the future she had planned? And what would her father say? Raphael had always been against professional competitions for Sophia. He taught her martial arts for self-defense, for discipline, for strengthening her spirit. Not for her to perform for show, not for her to use her skills for money or fame. After the incident with Caroline, he was especially adamant. Your power is a responsibility, Miga. Not entertainment, not a sport. You must use it only for defense, never for offense, never for show. How will she explain to him that she is now forced to do exactly what he has always been against? The bus stopped at her stop and Sophia got out, still lost in her thoughts. She walked slowly down the familiar street to their house, not noticing anything around her. Stepping onto the porch, she took a deep breath, gathering her courage. Then she opened the door and walked in. Raphael was sitting in the living room, sorting through some papers. When he saw his daughter, he raised his eyebrows in surprise. Sophia, why are you home so early? Sophia closed the door behind her, unsure where to begin. How to tell her father everything that had happened. About Victoria, about the fight, about the expulsion, about Richard's proposal. Dad, she began, but her voice wavered. Raphael immediately grasped her state. He put the papers aside and stood up, approaching his daughter. What happened, Mija? Are you okay? He looked her over carefully, looking for signs of injury. Sophia shook her head, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. No, something happened, at school. Raphael tensed. Did someone hurt you? Yeah, no. At first, yes. Sophia couldn't collect her thoughts. Dad, I fought. Raphael froze, his face becoming serious. Tell me everything, Sophia, from the beginning. And she did. About Victoria and her group, the constant humiliation, the juice spilled on her tray, the note on her locker, the ambush behind the gym. About Alexander and Jaden attacking her, and her defending herself using the techniques he taught her. About Victoria jumping on her from behind, and the words she whispered in her ear. Raphael listened without interrupting, his face growing darker as the story unfolded. And today, Sophia swallowed, getting to the hard part. Today, Victoria told everyone. About Caroline, about that incident, and about you, Dad, about the doping scandal. Raphael flinched as if struck, his face contorting in pain for a moment before he regained control. She told everyone that you were a fraud, that you were never really strong, Sophia's voice wavered. And her father, he got me expelled from school for defending myself. Adios mio, Raphael breathed, running his hand over his face. Sophia, why didn't you tell me earlier? Why didn't you say anything? I didn't want to worry you, Sophia whispered. You work so much, so hard. I thought I could handle it myself. Raphael shook his head. We're a family, Sophia. We have to deal with this together. He paused. But that's not all, right? You wouldn't come home in the middle of the day just because of that. Sophia nodded and took an envelope out of her pocket. Victoria's father, Richard Kingsley. He intercepted me at the bus stop and proposed. She handed the envelope to her father. Raphael opened it and began to read the contents, his face darkening with each line. Tournament? He wants you to participate in the tournament? Raphael looked at his daughter with confusion. Why? He said he was impressed with my skills, Sophia shrugged, and that if I agreed to play for him, he would forget about the incident with his kids and let me stay in school. He even promised me an athletic scholarship to college. Raphael threw the papers down, his face contorted with anger. This is blackmail. He can't make you do this. But he might expel me from school, Sophia said quietly. And you know that with my history and your finding a new one will be next to impossible, not to mention a good college. Raphael began to pace the room, his movements sharp, tense. We can fight this. Go to the principal, explain the situation. You have witnesses, right? People who saw that you were only defending yourself? Kingsley controls the school's board of directors. Sophia shook her head. And the cameras. I'm sure the footage has already been destroyed. Dad, we have no choice. Raphael stopped, looking at his daughter with pain in his eyes. We always have a choice, Mija. Always. Then what are we going to do? Sophia asked, feeling completely lost. Raphael took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. I need to talk to this Kingsley, face to face. Sophia winced. Dad, no. This is a bad idea. He's threatening my daughter, Raphael's voice was firm, using our past against us. I can't just sit back and let that happen. But what will you tell him? What will you do? Raphael picked up the phone. First I'll call him, set up a meeting, and then we'll see. Sophia felt fear squeeze her heart. She knew her father could protect her, always had. But to stand up to a man like Richard Kingsley, with his money, power, and connections, it was too dangerous. Dad, wait. She put her hand on his shoulder. Let's think first. Maybe there is another way. Raphael looked at her, his eyes full of determination. What, Sophia? Let you participate in this tournament? Become a pawn in his game? No. I did not train you all these years so that you would use your skills to entertain people like Kingsley. Then what? Let them expel me. Start all over again in a new city, a new school? Run away again? Sophia felt the anger and despair rising in her like a wave. I'm tired of running, Dad. Tired of starting over every time something goes wrong. Raphael looked at his daughter with pain and understanding. I know, Mija. Believe me, I know. Then let's not rush, Sophia asked. Let's sit down and think it over. Together. Raphael hesitated, then nodded. Okay, you're right. They sat down at the kitchen table, spreading the papers from the envelope in front of them. The tournament was to be held in 3 weeks at a sports complex in the city center. Richard Kingsley was the main sponsor and organizer. Look, all the details are here, Sophia pointed to the information sheet. Weight categories, rules, prizes, and, wait, she froze looking at the list of participants. In the women's category up to 55 kilograms, there was a name that made her blood run cold. Lauren Peters, she read aloud. Dad, this is the daughter of John Peters, Raphael finished grimly. My former coach. Sophia looked at her father, a sudden realization dawning on her. This is why Kingsley wants me to participate. It's not about my skills. It's about you. Raphael nodded slowly, his face pale. John Peters was the one who accused me of doping, the one who provided the alleged evidence to the commission, the one who ruined my career. And now his daughter is participating in the tournament, and Kingsley wants me to participate too. Sophia felt the pieces of the puzzle coming together in her head. It's not a coincidence, right? No, Raphael stood, his hands shaking. This is revenge, or some twisted form of amusement. Pit the daughter of a supposed con artist against the daughter of the man who exposed him. I have to call Kingsley, now. Sophia wanted to stop him, but at that moment there was a knock on the door, loud, insistent. Raphael and Sophia exchanged worried glances. They weren't expecting anyone. Raphael walked up to the door and opened it. There stood Richard Kingsley himself, with a perfect smile on his face and cold eyes. Mr. Ramirez, he said, extending his hand, I thought we should discuss your daughter's future in person. May I come in? Raphael looked at the outstretched hand, his own hands clenching into fists. But then he took a deep breath, relaxed, and nodded. Of course, Mr. Kingsley, he said, stepping aside. We do have a lot to talk about. Richard entered the house, looking around with barely concealed disdain at the modest furnishings. Sophia stood in the kitchen doorway, watching him with concern. Miss Ramirez, Richard nodded to her, I see you're already discussing my proposal. Yes, Sophia answered shortly. We are discussing it. Raphael closed the door and turned to his guest. Let me make this clear, Mr. Kingsley. My daughter will not be participating in your tournament. Richard raised his eyebrows in mock surprise. No, that's disappointing, especially considering the alternative. If you mean an exception, Raphael stepped closer, his eyes cold, then we will find a way to deal with this. Without your help. Richard laughed, but there was no humor in his laughter. Raphael, may I call you Raphael? You don't understand the situation. I'm not offering help. I'm offering the only way out. For what? Raphael asked bluntly. To set me up with John Peters? To pit our daughter against each other in a duel? What is this? Some kind of sick game? Richard stopped smiling. It's business, Raphael, and entertainment. 2 fighters with history, 2 daughters with hereditary talent. The public loves stories like that. Sophia is not a fighter, Raphael said firmly. She is a student, a college student. She has a great future that does not include your entertainment. Oh, I wouldn't be so sure. Richard pulled his phone out of his pocket. You see, my children provided me with some very impressive video of yesterday's incident. Your daughter Raphael has an exceptional talent, a talent worth cultivating and showcasing. Video? Sophia stepped forward. But how? There was no one there filming. Richard smiled. Oh, Ms. Ramirez, there are cameras everywhere these days, especially where something interesting might happen. He held out his phone, showing the video. It clearly showed Sophia overpowering first Alexander, then Jaden, and finally Victoria herself. The footage was taken from a high vantage point, perhaps a tree or the roof of an outbuilding. Beautiful technique, Richard remarked, taking the phone back. Clean movements, no unnecessary actions. Your school, Raphael. I recognize it. You were always elegant in combat. Raphael tensed. What do you know about my school? Oh, I know a lot. Richard took a few steps around the living room, looking at the photographs on the walls. I've followed your career for years, admired your technique, your discipline, even bet on you, a lot of bets. He paused in front of a photograph of a young Raphael holding the trophy above his head. Until, of course, that nasty doping incident happened. Raphael was silent, but Sophia saw his jaw tense. You know what's always been on my mind? Richard continued without turning around. Why didn't you fight? Why didn't you challenge the charges? Why did you just disappear? It's none of your business, Raphael replied coldly. Perhaps, Richard turned, his eyes glittering with a strange fire. But now it concerns your daughter and her future. He took a step toward Raphael. I'll make you a deal, Raphael. Sophia enters the tournament, fights Lauren Peters, and maybe others if she advances. And in exchange, I'll not only let her stay at Westridge, but I'll give her a full athletic scholarship to the college of her choice. Raphael shook his head. What if she loses? Then she'll just lose, Richard shrugged. I don't ask her to win. I only ask for participation and a spectacle. Sophia looked at Richard, trying to understand his motives. Something was wrong. Something was hidden behind his words, behind his offer. What if we refuse? She asked directly. Richard turned to her. Then, Ms. Ramirez, I will be forced not only to have you expelled from Westridge, but to ensure that no decent school in the country will accept you. And this video of your ability to hurt others will be made public. This is blackmail, Raphael said through gritted teeth, and you wouldn't dare. No, it's business, Richard smiled again. And not only would I dare, I would do it with pleasure. Unless, of course, you accept my offer. A heavy silence fell over the room. Sophia looked at her father, seeing the emotions warring on his face. Anger, fear, determination, despair. We need time, Raphael finally said, to discuss this, as a family. Richard nodded, as if he had expected it. Of course, you have until tomorrow. He pulled a business card from his pocket and placed it on the table. Call me when you've made a decision, which I hope is a sensible one. He started toward the door but stopped next to Sophia. You know, Ms. Ramirez, your father was a legend, an undefeated champion, before his own demons got the better of him. He lowered his voice almost to a whisper. You can eclipse his glory, become what he could never be. Think about it. With these words, he left the house, leaving Sophia and Raphael in a daze. As soon as the door closed, Raphael collapsed on the sofa, covering his face with his hands. Sophia had never seen him so broken, so vulnerable. Daddy? She walked up to him, sitting down carefully next to him. What should we do? Raphael didn't answer for a moment, his shoulders shaking slightly. When he finally raised his head, his eyes were wet, but there was a fire of determination in them. We won't play by his rules, he said firmly. We won't let him use us. But what then? If I don't participate in the tournament, we will fight. Raphael took her hands in his. Really fight. Not in a cage, not for fun, but for the truth. Sophia looked at her father with bewilderment. How? Raphael took a deep breath. It's time to tell you the truth, Sophia. The whole truth. About the doping scandal, about John Peters, and about Richard Kingsley. Sophia listened with bated breath as Raphael began his story. A story she had never heard before. A story that changed everything. 10 years ago, I was at the peak of my career. Raphael began, his voice quiet but firm. An undefeated champion, as Kingsley said. I had won 7 tournaments in a row and was preparing for the most important fight of my life, the World Championship. He stood up, walking towards a photograph on the wall. A young Raphael in the ring, his arms raised in triumph. My coach was John Peters. We had worked together for years. He knew me better than anyone. Or so I thought. Raphael smiled bitterly. A week before the championship, I was notified that I had tested positive for a banned substance. I was shocked. I had never taken drugs. I had never even thought about it. He turned to Sophia, his eyes full of pain. I demanded a retake, insisted on additional testing. But it was too late. John had already given an interview to the press, saying that he had always suspected me of using stimulants. That had explained my incredible results. Sophia felt anger rising inside her. But why? Why did he do this? Money, Raphael answered simply. A lot of money. Someone paid him to set me up. Someone who didn't want me to win the championship. Kingsley, Sophia breathed, suddenly understanding. He was betting on you to fight. Raphael nodded. And not just mine. Richard Kingsley was known in sports circles as a man who controlled the bets, who sometimes influenced the results of fights. But why did he want you to lose? If you were so successful, because I was supposed to face his fighter at the championship, the man he had bet millions on. Raphael clenched his fists, and the odds weren't in his favor. Everyone knew I was the favorite. Everyone but Kingsley was betting on me. Sophia was beginning to understand. That's why he needed to get you out of the way. Exactly. Raphael walked over to the closet and pulled out an old folder. And he did it at the hands of my own coach. Not only did John set me up for doping, he also destroyed all evidence of my innocence. He opened the folder, showing Sophia old newspaper clippings, photographs, documents. I tried to fight, hired lawyers, did my own research, but it was too late. My image was ruined. My career was destroyed. And Kingsley got his millions when his fighter won the championship without having to face me. Raphael closed the folder, his face grim. I could have continued to fight. I could have tried to clear my name. But then you were born, Sophia, and I realized that there are things more important than my pride, my career. I decided to start all over again, for you. Sophia looked at her father, feeling a lump in her throat. Is that why we move so often? Is that why? Raphael nodded. Every time we started a new life somewhere, somehow the doping story came up. Parents didn't want their children training with a cheater. Schools didn't want the daughter of a cheater. We were forced to flee again and again. Sophia felt anger and determination rise up inside her. And now Kingsley has found us again. And he wants to use me to, what? Finish what he started with you? I don't know, Raphael answered honestly. Maybe this is just some sick amusement for him. Maybe some twisted way of proving that he's still in control. Or maybe this is a chance, Sophia said slowly, her thoughts beginning to form into a plan. A chance to finally stand up to him, to prove the truth. Raphael looked at his daughter with concern. What are you talking about, Sophia? If I agree to participate in the tournament, Sophia began to pace the room, her energy making it impossible for her to sit still. We can get closer to Kingsley. Maybe find evidence of what he did to you. Evidence we can use to clear your name. No, Raphael said firmly. It's too dangerous. I won't let you risk yourself for my past. But it's not just your past, Dad, Sophia turned to him. It's my present too, my future. As long as this history follows us, we'll never be free. We'll always be running. Raphael looked at his daughter, understanding the truth in her words, but the fear for her was stronger. No, Sophia, I can't let you do this. Then what? Sophia insisted. Do we let them expel me from school? Ruin my chances at college? Or do we leave again? Start over in a new town, with new names, new lies. She walked up to her father, taking his hands. Dad, you always taught me to never run from a fight. Always stand up for what's right. Always protect yourself and the ones you love. Isn't now the time for that? Raphael looked at his daughter, seeing not only his little girl, but the strong, determined young woman she had become. And he knew he couldn't protect her forever. He couldn't keep running, letting the past rule their lives. What do you propose? He finally asked. Sophia smiled, feeling hope rise in her chest for the first time in a long time. I'm entering the tournament, but not just as Kingsley's pawn. I'm doing it on our terms. She walked over to the table where the papers from Kingsley's envelope lay. Look, this is all the information about the tournament. The location, the other participants, the rules. If we're ready, if we have a plan. Raphael listened to his daughter, seeing in her eyes the fire that had once burned in his own, the fire of struggle, the fire of justice. And he knew that he could no longer protect her from the world. He could no longer run from the past. Okay, he took a deep breath. We'll do this. Together. Sophia hugged her father, feeling the determination growing inside her. This wasn't just a fight for her place at school. This was a fight for their future, for their honor, for their freedom. We will win, Dad, she whispered. We will finally win. Raphael hugged his daughter, hoping that her confidence would be justified, that they could really stand up to Kingsley and his machinations, that they could finally stop running, start living. But somewhere deep inside, he felt a sense of unease, a sense of danger he couldn't ignore. Richard Kingsley was not one to play fair, and if they accepted his challenge, they had to be prepared for the game to not go their way. Nevertheless, the decision had been made. The path had been chosen, and now they had to follow it to the end, no matter what the consequences. The next morning, Sophia called Richard Kingsley and told him of her decision to enter the tournament, to fight Lauren Peters. To be part of its spectacle, Kingsley was clearly pleased, but Sophia sensed something strange in his voice, some hidden satisfaction, as if everything was going exactly according to his plan. Excellent decision, Ms. Ramirez, he said. I've already informed Principal Westridge. You can return to school, and of course, no trouble regarding yesterday's incident. Thank you, Sophia replied dryly, but I have conditions. Kingsley laughed. Conditions? You're in no position to make conditions, Ms. Ramirez. I want my father to be my coach, Sophia said firmly. Officially, during the tournament, in my corner. There was a pause. Your father? An interesting demand, considering his reputation. That's my only condition, Sophia insisted. Without it, I won't participate. Another pause, then Kingsley sighed in mock exasperation. Very well, your father can be your trainer. But remember, Miss Ramirez, there is much more at stake than just winning the fight. You have 3 weeks to prepare. Use them wisely. With that, he hung up, leaving Sophia with the uneasy feeling that she had just done exactly what he expected. But there was no time for doubt. Preparation for the tournament began immediately. Raphael developed an intensive training program, focusing not only on physical preparation, but also on mental toughness. Sophia had to be prepared not only for the fight with Lauren Peters, but also for the psychological pressure that Kingsley would undoubtedly exert. As they trained, they hatched a plan. Raphael reached out to his old martial arts contacts, people who had once known the truth about the doping scandal, but were afraid to speak out against Kingsley. He hoped that in the intervening years, some of them had worked up enough courage to speak up. Sophia, meanwhile, had returned to Westridge. To her surprise, the atmosphere at the school had changed. Victoria and her group kept their distance, avoiding direct contact. Alexander, when they passed each other in the hallways, looked at her with an odd mixture of respect and fear. Jaden simply looked away. But the most surprising thing was the attitude of the other students. Many smiled openly at her. Some even approached her to get acquainted or just talk. Sophia, used to isolation and ridicule, did not know how to react to this sudden attention. You're a celebrity, Daniel explained to her as they sat together in the cafeteria. The girl who stood up to Victoria Kingsley and her gang. A lot of people here have been secretly dreaming about it for years. Sophia shook her head. I didn't want fame. I just wanted to be left alone. Well, now you're definitely not going to be left alone, Daniel chuckled, especially when everyone finds out about the tournament. Sophia looked at him in surprise. You know about the tournament? All of Westridge knows, Daniel shrugged. Victoria made sure of that. She goes around telling everyone how her father put you in your place by forcing you into this tournament, how you're going to be destroyed by Lauren Peters, who she says is a real fighter, not an amateur. Sophia felt her heart sink. Of course, Victoria wouldn't miss the opportunity to humiliate her, even in this situation. Don't listen to her. Daniel squeezed her hand lightly. Everyone knows what Victoria's words are worth, and many will be rooting for you in this tournament, including me. Sophia smiled faintly. Daniel's support meant more to her than she could express. In a world where everything seemed hostile and unpredictable, he was one of the few sincere people. Thank you, she said quietly. It means a lot to me. 3 weeks passed like a day. Sophia was torn between school, where she had to endure the sidelong glances of Victoria and her group, and intensive training with her father. Every evening she came home exhausted physically and emotionally, but determined to continue the fight. Raphael was a demanding coach. He knew there was a lot at stake, and he couldn't let his daughter be unprepared. They trained for hours, going over basic techniques, strategizing against potential opponents, especially Lauren Peters. Lauren is an aggressive fighter, Raphael explained, showing Sophia videos of the girl's previous fights. She doesn't wait, she attacks first, tries to suppress her opponent from the very beginning. The way Alexander tried with me, Sophia noted, recalling the incident behind the gym. Exactly, Raphael nodded. But unlike Alexander, Lauren knows what she's doing. She's been training since she was a kid, just like you. And her father, John Peters, was one of the best trainers I knew, before he became one of the worst. Sophia saw the pain in her father's eyes when he spoke of his former coach. The betrayal he had suffered was still a fresh wound. "We'll beat them, Dad," she said firmly. "Both the Peters and the Kingsleys. We'll prove the truth." Raphael merely nodded, but Sophia could see the doubt in his eyes. Doubt not in her abilities, but in the justice of a world that had so often been unfair to them. The day of the tournament finally arrived. Sophia woke up early, her nerves on edge. Today was the day when everything would be decided, the day when they would finally face the past. Raphael was unusually quiet during breakfast. He moved mechanically around the kitchen, preparing food that neither he nor Sophia could bring themselves to eat. "Are you ready?" he finally asked as they were about to leave the house. Sophia took a deep breath and nodded. Readier than ever. The sports complex where the tournament was held was packed. Hundreds of people came to see the young fighters, many of whom could become future stars of mixed martial arts. Posters with the names of the participants adorned the walls, and Sophia was surprised to find her name next to Lauren Peters in the main fight of the women's 55-kilogram category. "They made our fight the main one," she noted, turning to her father. "Why?" "Because it's a show," Raphael replied grimly. "The Kingsley show." They walked into the locker room where Sophia was to prepare for the fight. The other contestants looked at her with curiosity and some caution. Apparently, word of her skills had already spread. In the corner of the locker room, Sophia noticed a tall, athletic blonde girl warming up, concentrating on her movements with the intensity of a professional. It was Lauren Peters. Raphael froze when he saw the girl. Sophia noticed how he tensed up, how his gaze became sharp and attentive. "She looks a lot like him," he said quietly. "Like John." At that moment, as if she sensed their gaze, Lauren raised her head. Her eyes met Raphael's, and for a moment, an electric current ran between them. Recognition, a challenge, something else that Sophia couldn't place. Lauren then turned her gaze to Sophia, assessing her potential rival. Her face showed neither hostility nor friendliness, only cold, professional interest. "Come on," Raphael gently tugged at Sophia's hand. "We need to get ready." They found a free corner of the locker room, and Sophia began changing into the sports uniform provided by the tournament organizers. A simple black rash guard and shorts with the tournament logo. Raphael helped her warm up, giving her final instructions. "Remember, she will attack immediately," he said quietly. "Don't give in to provocations. Keep your distance, study her movements. Use her aggression against her, as I taught you." Sophia nodded, taking in every word. But her thoughts were already in the cage, where she would soon meet Lauren Peters. Suddenly, the door to the dressing room opened, and Richard Kingsley walked in, accompanied by several men in suits. He looked around the room, then walked straight up to Sophia and Raphael. "Miss Ramirez," he smiled. "I'm glad to see you're ready. And you, Raphael, it's been a long time." Raphael tensed, his hands clenching into fists. "Kingsley." "Oh, let's not be formal." Richard waved his hand. "We're all friends here, or at least business partners." He turned to Sophia. "I came to make sure you have everything you need, and to remind you of our agreement. You participate in the tournament, give the audience a good show, and I forget about troubles at school." Sophia nodded, not trusting her voice. "Great." Richard looked around, saw Lauren in the other corner and waved. "Lauren, my dear, come meet your rival." Lauren, after a moment's hesitation, approached. She was taller than Sophia, her movements confident and smooth. "Lauren Peters, this is Sophia Ramirez," Richard introduced them. "And, of course, her father, the legendary Rafael Ramirez. Although I'm sure you've heard about him from your father." Lauren nodded, her gaze landing on Raphael. "Yeah, I've heard that." Raphael met her gaze calmly, but Sophia saw how the muscles in his jaw tensed. "Where's John?" he asked. "I thought he'd be here as your coach." "He's here," Lauren replied, her voice neutral. "Getting ready." Richard clapped his hands. "Well, I won't stop you. Good luck to both of you. And remember, it's all about putting on a good show." He left, leaving the four of them in awkward silence. Lauren looked at Raphael with an unreadable expression on her face. My father told me a lot about you, she finally said. About what a legend you were, and about how it all ended. Raphael tensed even more. I'm sure his version is different from reality. Maybe, Lauren agreed unexpectedly. I've started to doubt a lot of things he says lately. Sophia saw surprise flash across her father's face. He clearly hadn't expected such an answer from the daughter of his former coach. But that doesn't matter today, Lauren continued. Today is about us. About you and me, Sophia. Sophia nodded. Sophia, yes, today we are talking about us. Lauren smiled slightly, showing some emotion for the first time. Good luck to you. You'll be a worthy opponent, I'm sure. With these words, she returned to her corner, leaving Sophia and Raphael slightly confused. What was that? Sophia asked when Lauren had walked far enough away. Raphael shook his head. I don't know, but she's not what I expected. Further thoughts were interrupted by the tournament organizer entering the locker room. Attention all participants. The tournament begins in 15 minutes. Please be ready to go. Sophia took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline begin to pulse through her veins. Raphael placed his hands on her shoulders, looking straight into her eyes. Sophia, listen to me. His voice was quiet but firm. No matter what happens today, I'm proud of you. You're stronger than you think, and you'll handle this, just like you've handled everything in your life. Sophia nodded, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. Thank you, Dad, for everything. They hugged each other tightly, as if it could protect them from all the storms that lay ahead. Then began what they had been preparing for 3 weeks, the tournament. Sophia sat in her corner, watching the previous fights, studying the techniques of the other participants, listening to her father's advice. The fights in the women's category up to 55 kilograms went on as usual, until only 2 finalists remained, Sophia and Lauren. The main fight of the evening, the fight that everyone was waiting for. Rafael Ramirez's daughter versus John Peters' daughter, the continuation of a story that began long before they were born. As the announcer announced their names, Sophia stood up, feeling strangely calm. Rafael gave her one last hug before she walked into the cage. You're ready, he whispered. You've always been ready. Sophia entered the cage to mixed reactions from the crowd, some applauding, some whistling. She noticed Victoria and Alexander Kingsley in the front row, watching her with cool interest. Their father, Richard, sat next to them, his face oddly satisfied. Lauren entered the cage from the other side. She was accompanied by a tall man with gray hair and a hard look, John Peters. He did not even glance in Raphael's direction, focusing entirely on his daughter. The referee called both girls to the center of the cage for instructions. Sophia met Lauren's gaze. There was no hatred or contempt in her opponent's eyes, only focus and determination. Clean fight, girl, the referee said. Follow the rules. Listen to my commands. Ready? They both nodded. They retreated to their corners, waiting for the signal to begin the fight. The bell rang, and the fight began. As Raphael predicted, Lauren attacked immediately, moving forward with a flurry of punches. Sophia sidestepped, using a technique she had perfected over the years, allowing her opponent's aggression to work against her. Lauren was good, very good. Her punches were precise, her movements smooth and sure. She knew what she was doing, and she did it with the skill that only years of experience could give. But Sophia was no worse. Years of training with her father had given her an understanding of combat that couldn't be gained in a simple training room. She read Lauren's movements, anticipated her attacks, countered with her own, gradually probing her opponent's weak points. The first round was a relatively even fight. Sophia was mostly on the defensive, studying Lauren's style, adapting to her rhythm. Lauren seemed to be sizing Sophia up too, testing her reactions, looking for openings in her defense. When the bell rang, both girls returned to their corners. Raphael quickly gave Sophia advice, pointing out quirks of Lauren's technique that he had noticed. She prefers the right side, he said, and when she's preparing for a big blow, she tilts her head slightly. Use that. Sophia nodded, taking in the information. She glanced across the room where John Peters was speaking urgently to his daughter. Lauren was listening intently, but her gaze briefly met Sophia's, and there was something odd about it. Something like recognition, respect. The second round began with renewed intensity. Lauren, apparently taking instructions from her father, changed tactics, trying to force Sophia to the wall of the cage. Sophia adapted, using her agility and speed to evade the pressure. At one point, Lauren landed a particularly precise combination, forcing Sophia to retreat. The crowd roared, sensing that the fight could end at any moment. But Sophia regained her balance and responded with a series of her own punches, one of which landed, causing Lauren to lose her concentration for a moment. Sophia took advantage of the moment, executing a difficult throw that her father had taught her. Lauren found herself on the floor, with Sophia on top, in control. But Lauren was an experienced fighter. She quickly flipped over, regaining the balance of the fight. Round after round, the girls demonstrated the highest level of skill. This was not just a duel between two juniors, it was a fight between professionals trained by the best coaches. Sophia could feel the fatigue starting to show. Lauren looked exhausted too, but she kept moving with the same intensity. As the final round began, both girls were breathing heavily, their faces covered in sweat. "Last round," Raphael said, wiping his daughter's face with a towel. "You're ahead on points, but not by much. Be careful. She'll come at you with a vengeance." Sophia nodded, gathering her last strength. She glanced towards the audience and noticed Richard Kingsley, who now looked tense. He was saying something to his children, and Victoria nodded, her face focused. The bell rang, and the final round began. As Raphael predicted, Lauren attacked with renewed vigor, knowing she needed a clean win. Sophia defended herself, using everything she had learned to withstand her opponent's onslaught. At one point, Lauren launched a particularly powerful attack, and Sophia found herself pinned against the wall of the cage. The crowd roared, sensing the end was near. Sophia saw determination on Lauren's face, but not malice, just the pure focus of a fighter determined to win. At this critical moment, Sophia remembered everything her father had taught her, not only combat techniques, but also mental strength, the ability to remain calm even in the most difficult situations. She took a deep breath, and time seemed to slow down. Sophia saw Lauren preparing for the final attack, her head tilting slightly, the signal Raphael had spoken of. And at that moment, Sophia acted on instinct. She moved to the side at the last second, allowing Lauren's attack to miss its target. Then, using her opponent's momentum, she delivered a precise counterpunch, followed by a throw. Lauren was on the floor, Sophia was in control. She could have finished the fight right there with a series of punches that would have forced the referee to stop the fight. But instead, Sophia caught Lauren's gaze and saw not fear, but understanding. Some kind of silent recognition that went deeper than just respect for the enemy. Sophia loosened her grip, giving Lauren a chance to regain her position. The crowd roared, wondering why she wasn't ending the fight. Raphael was yelling something in the corner, but his words were drowned out by the general noise. Lauren used this moment to turn over, and the fight continued standing. The last seconds of the round were spent by both girls in an intense exchange of blows, demonstrating all their skill. When the final bell rang, Sophia and Lauren stood across from each other, breathing heavily, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and respect. They exchanged nods before returning to their corners. Raphael hugged his daughter, his eyes shining with pride. "You were amazing," he whispered. "Regardless of what the judges decided, you won today. You really did." Sophia smiled through her fatigue. "Thank you, Dad." The judges were conferring, and the crowd was buzzing with anticipation. Sophia noticed Richard Kingsley leaning toward one of the tournament officials, speaking quickly into his ear. The man nodded and hurried to the judges' table. "Something's wrong," Raphael muttered, following his daughter's gaze. "Kingsley's up to something." Sophia felt the anxiety rising inside her again. Surely Kingsley wouldn't leave the outcome of the fight to chance? Not when he had orchestrated the spectacle so carefully. Finally, the announcer stood up to announce the decision. "Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 tense rounds, the judges have reached a decision. The winner of this fight and champion in the 55-kilogram weight class is..." The drumbeat filled the room, increasing the tension. "Lauren Peters!" The crowd erupted in mixed reactions, with applause and boos. Many who watched the fight clearly disagreed with the judge's decision. Sophia felt Raphael tense beside her. "This isn't right," he whispered. "You've been fighting the whole fight. This decision..." "Purchased," Sophia finished, looking at Richard Kingsley's triumphant smile. Next to him, Victoria grinned, clearly enjoying the moment. Lauren stood in the center of the cage, her hand raised in victory, but her face was a strange mixture of emotions. She didn't look entirely pleased with her victory. The judge called Sophia over for the traditional handshake. She approached, trying to maintain her dignity. As she and Lauren shook hands, Sophia noticed something strange in her opponent's eyes, almost an apology. "You were better," Lauren said quietly, so only Sophia could hear. "We both know that." Sophia looked at her in surprise, but before she could respond, they were surrounded by photographers, journalists, and tournament officials. Richard Kingsley walked up to the cage holding the championship belt. His smile was wide and fake as he handed the trophy to Lauren. "Congratulations, young champion," he said loudly for the cameras. "You represented your family well today." Then he turned to Sophia, his eyes gleaming coldly. "And you, Ms. Ramirez, have shown great potential. Perhaps with a more suitable coach you would have achieved more." It was a blow aimed straight at Raphael, and Sophia felt anger rise inside her. "My father is the best coach I could ever ask for," she said, loud enough for those around her to hear. "And today everyone saw that your influence extends even to the refereeing decisions, Mr. Kingsley." Richard tensed, his smile becoming strained. "Careful with your words, Ms. Ramirez. Remember our agreement." "Oh, I remember." Sophia met his gaze, not looking away. "I participated in your tournament. I gave the audience a show. The deal was done." She turned to leave, but Richard grabbed her arm. "Not so fast. Our deal involved not just participation, but certain behavior. And you're publicly accusing us of rigging the results is hardly good behavior." Sophia pulled her hand away. "Let me go." At that moment, Raphael stepped up onto the platform, his eyes blazing with a dangerous fire. "Get your hands off my daughter, Kingsley." Richard took a step back, but his grin didn't go away. "And here comes the hero father, or rather, the con man father. Tell me, Raphael, what is it like to train your daughter while knowing that your own career ended in disgrace? Aren't you afraid that history will repeat itself?" Raphael took a step forward, and Sophia could see that he was struggling to keep from physically confronting her. "History won't repeat itself, Kingsley, because this time the truth will come out." "Really?" Richard laughed. "What truth? That you were doping? That you were deceiving your fans for years? That's a proven fact." "No," a new voice suddenly said, firm, decisive. Everyone turned around. John Peters, Lauren's father, stepped into the cage. His face was grim, his gaze heavy. "What did you say, John?" Richard asked, his confidence wavering for the first time. "I said no," John repeated, stepping closer. "It's not a proven fact. It's a lie I've been part of for too long." The crowd fell silent, sensing that something important was happening. Journalists raised their cameras, filming everything that was happening. Raphael looked at his former coach with disbelief. "John?" John Peters turned to him. "I'm sorry, Raphael. I should have told you years ago. You never took drugs. The samples were switched. On Kingsley's orders." Richard Kingsley turned pale. "What nonsense are you talking about? Shut up this instant." "No," John shook his head. "I kept quiet for 10 years. I let the career of the best fighter I ever trained be destroyed. I let my daughter believe a lie." "Enough." He turned to the reporters. "I have proof. Documents showing that Richard Kingsley paid me to switch Rafael Ramirez's samples. He bet millions on his opponent and couldn't afford to lose that money." "This is libel," Richard screamed, his face contorted with rage. "I will sue. I will destroy you." "No, you won't," John was calm, "because I'm not the only one who knows the truth, and I'm not the only one who has proof." He pulled a flash drive out of his pocket. "It's all here. Recordings of our conversations, copies of bank transfers, testimonies from the people who helped us switch the samples. Everything we need to prove Raphael's innocence and your guilt, Kingsley." Raphael looked at his former coach with a mixture of shock and disbelief. "Why now, John? Why, after all these years?" John turned to him, pain evident in his eyes. "Because I couldn't watch history repeat itself. I couldn't let Lauren participate in the same dirty game." He glanced at his daughter, who looked at him in shock. "When Kingsley orchestrated this fight, I realized he planned to use our daughters the way he used us, and I couldn't stay silent any longer." Richard Kingsley looked back like a cornered animal. Victoria and Alexander watched from the front row, their faces filled with shock and confusion. "It's all lies," Richard said through gritted teeth. "No one would believe a losing coach's words against my reputation." "We'll check it out," one of the reporters said, coming closer. "If what Mr. Peters says is true, it will be the biggest sports story of the year." "And not just sports," added another, "considering the scale of the betting fraud allegations." Kingsley began to back away from the cage. "You will all regret this. I will destroy anyone who—" His words were cut off as a group of men in suits entered the room. One of them flashed a badge. "Richard Kingsley, we are from the Sports Integrity Commission. We need to ask you some questions in connection with information we have received about the manipulation of fight results and doping tests. Kingsley's face lost all color. He glanced at his children, then at John Peters, and finally at Raphael and Sophia. This is not the end, he hissed before turning to the officials. I'll be happy to answer your questions after I call my lawyer. He stepped down from the platform, his once commanding figure now looking broken. Victoria and Alexander hurried after him, confusion and fear written on their faces. There was silence in the cage. Raphael looked at John, not knowing what to say. Why? He finally asked. Why did you betray me then? For money? John hung his head. Partly. Kingsley offered a sum that was hard to refuse. But there was another reason. He looked up, meeting Raphael's gaze. Envy. You were better than I could ever be. You surpassed me, your teacher, and my pride couldn't bear it. He shook his head. There's no excuse for what I did. I destroyed your career, your reputation. I made you and your daughter live in the shadow of a lie for years. John held out his hand, holding the flash drive. This won't fix everything I've done, but maybe it's a start. Raphael stared at the outstretched hand, unmoving. Sophia could see the struggle on her father's face. 10 years of pain, anger, disappointment versus the chance to finally clear his name. Slowly, very slowly, Raphael picked up the flash drive. This isn't for me, he said quietly. This is for my daughter, so she can live without the shadow of my past hanging over her. John nodded, understanding. You were always the best of us, Raphael. Even now. Lauren walked up to them, still holding the championship belt. Her face was serious as she turned to her father. Is that true? Everything you just said? John looked at his daughter, and Sophia saw the pain and regret in his eyes. Yes, Lauren. I deceived not only the world, but you too. I hoped you would never know what kind of person I was, what kind of person I have become. Lauren was silent for several long seconds. Then, to everyone's surprise, she removed the championship belt and handed it to Sophia. This fight was yours, she said firmly. We both know it, and now everyone should know it. Sophia looked at the belt, unsure of what to do. Lauren, you don't have to. I have to, Lauren interrupted. If I'm going to be a worthy fighter, I have to do the right thing, even if my father couldn't. She turned to the crowd and reporters. I relinquish this title. The real winner of this fight is Sophia Ramirez. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Sophia stood there stunned, unable to believe what was happening. Raphael walked up to her, placing his hand on her shoulder. You see, mija, the truth always finds a way, even if it takes 10 years. Sophia looked at her father, seeing the years of pain and injustice finally recede from his face. You're free, Dad, she whispered, free at last. At that moment, journalists approached them, bombarding them with questions. Raphael raised his hand, asking for silence. I'll answer your questions, he said. But first, he turned to his daughter and hugged her tightly like when she was little. I always knew you were special, Sophia, not because of your fighting skills, but because of your heart, because of your fortitude. You didn't break. You didn't back down in the face of injustice. You fought, not with your fists, but with your integrity, your resilience. Sophia hugged her father back, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. I learned from the best, she whispered. At that moment, tournament officials approached them, looking confused and worried. Mr. Ramirez, Ms. Ramirez, one of them began. In light of the recent statements and Ms. Peters' renunciation of the title, we would like to review the judge's decision. If you are willing to wait, that's not necessary, Lauren's voice rang out. I know who won this fight, and the official result won't change anything. She extended her hand to Sophia. Perhaps someday we will fight again. For real, without any outside influences. Sophia smiled and shook Lauren's hand. I'd like that. As they left the sports complex half an hour later, Raphael paused for a moment, looking at the night sky. You know what's most amazing, Sophia? He said quietly. All this time I thought I needed to clear my name, to prove my innocence to the world. But today I realized that what I really needed was for you to know the truth, for you to be proud of your father. Sophia took his hand. I've always been proud of you, Dad. Always. Even when the world was against you, I knew you were a man of honor. A man who taught me not only strength, but compassion. Not only victory, but dignity in defeat. Raphael smiled, tears glistening in his eyes. Let's go home, mija. Our real life is just beginning. They walked down the night street, father and daughter, leaving behind years of pain and injustice. An unknown future awaited them, but this time they faced it not with fear, but with hope. The next few days passed in a blur. The Rafael Ramirez story and the revelation of Richard Kingsley's fraud became headline news not just in sports but in mainstream media as well. Journalists besieged their home, demanding interviews, commentary, exclusive rights to the story. Rafael, after some hesitation, decided to tell his version of events, not for himself as he explained to Sophia, but for all those athletes who could become victims of such manipulations. John Peters also testified, confirming everything on the flash drive. His coaching career was likely over, but as he said in an interview, it's a small price to pay to finally start living with a clear conscience. Lauren, to the surprise of many, supported her father in his decision to come clean. She publicly apologized to Rafael and Sophia, although they assured her that she was not responsible for her father's actions. As for Richard Kingsley, the investigation into his activities was just beginning, but it was already clear that his empire was crumbling. He had been removed as chairman of the Westridge Academy Board of Trustees, and many of his business partners were quick to distance themselves from him. When Sophia returned to school after all these events, she noticed a striking change. Students who had previously ignored her or followed Victoria's example in bullying now greeted her with smiles and respect. Victoria and Alexander were absent. Their father was rumored to have sent them to a boarding school in Europe, away from the scandal. Sophia was walking down a familiar hallway when she saw Daniel talking to a group of students. When he saw her, he smiled and waved. "There she is, our champion," he exclaimed, approaching her. "How are you?" Sophia smiled. "I'm coping. It's all a little overwhelming." "You bet," Daniel nodded. "It's not every day you make national news." "I'm not a heroine," Sophia shook her head. "I just did what I thought was right." "That's what makes you a hero," Daniel said seriously. "You weren't afraid to stand up to Kingsley, even when everything was against you. You stood up for your father when everyone else condemned him. That takes real strength, Sophia. Not the kind that wins a fight, but the kind that wins life." Sophia felt her heart warm at his words. "Thank you, Daniel, for everything. You were one of the few who supported me from the very beginning." Daniel smiled. "You're welcome. I'm just glad everything turned out well." "Me too." Sophia looked around at the school hallways that had seemed such a hostile place to her just a few days ago. "You know, I always thought of Westridge as just another stop before the next move, another school to endure. But now, could this be a real home now?" Daniel suggested. Sophia nodded. "Yes, that's right. First real home in a long time." The bell rang, signaling the start of class. Sophia and Daniel walked to class, talking about the day ahead, homework, plans for the weekend. Ordinary, everyday things that had previously seemed like unaffordable luxuries to Sophia. After classes, Sophia walked out of school and saw her father waiting for her at the gate. His face was calm, peaceful, an expression she had rarely seen before. "How was your day, mija?" he asked when she approached. "Good," Sophia smiled. "Surprisingly good." They walked down the street together, enjoying the warm spring day. "I have news," Rafael said after a moment of silence. "I received an offer from the Sports Federation." Sophia looked at him in surprise. "What offer?" "They want me back. Not as a fighter, of course. Those days are long gone. As a coach of the national junior team." Sophia stopped, looking at her father with wide eyes. "Dad, this is amazing. This is what you've always wanted." Rafael nodded, his eyes shining with excitement. "Yes, that's the dream. But there's one problem." "What?" Sophia asked worriedly. "The training center is in Los Angeles. We'd have to move." He looked at his daughter carefully. "I know you're just starting to get used to Westridge. Make friends. If you don't want to move again, I understand. I'll turn down the offer." Sophia looked at her father, seeing the hope in his eyes and his willingness to give up his dream for her. And in that moment, she realized that a real home is not a building, not a city, not a school. Home is where your family is, where people love you and care about you. "Dad," she took his hands, "you've sacrificed my entire life for me. Your career, your dreams, everything has been subordinated to providing me with a better life. Now it's my turn to support you." She smiled, feeling warmth spreading in her chest. "Let's move to Los Angeles. Let's start a new chapter. Together." Rafael hugged his daughter, and Sophia felt his tears fall on her shoulder. "Gracias, mija. Te quiero mucho." "I love you too, Daddy," Sophia whispered. more than anything in the world. They stood there hugging each other in the middle of the sidewalk, not paying attention to the passers-by. Father and daughter who had gone through pain, betrayal, and injustice, but had preserved the most important thing, love and faith in each other. A new future awaited them, new challenges, new opportunities. But they faced them together, stronger than ever. Sophia Ramirez, a girl who spent her life running, has finally found her place in the world. Not in a particular school or city, but in the realization that her strength comes not only from her ability to physically protect herself, but from the courage to stand up for what is right, the determination to never give up, and the love that conquers all. And this was the most important victory in her life.